Okay, good morning, everyone. This is the February Missouri Evergreen Circulation Committee meeting, and we'll go ahead and get things started. I've got the agenda shared out that hopefully everybody can see. And we have the first section for public comments. If anybody had something they wanted to bring forward at that point, and I'll hush so we can do that. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll go forward. But of course, if anybody has something to bring forward, feel free to drop it in the chat or speak up at any time and we can keep the discussion rolling. On the new business items, we had an option come up about adding the Spanish translation to the catalog. Diane was leading the charge for this with Scenic. So Diane, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the demo of it if you wanted to talk a little bit about the project.
Okay, we are adding Spanish resources to our collection, adding more of them, and we also put a Spanish translation on our library's website. Well, it's not just Spanish. If you look at our website now, there's all these different national flags you can click on, so you can translate our website into any language. And on the website, then, it's every single word that's on the page gets translated to whatever language it is that you want to see. So we asked about having the OPAC available in Spanish. And Equinox said you can't do that library by library. It has to be done as a consortium. And they showed us the test server, which Meredith is showing you now, that shows what would be translated to Spanish if you chose Spanish up there in that right corner where it has a drop-down menu. And you can see that it's not every word translated to Spanish, as we saw on our website. There's still a lot of English there, and then there's Spanish there. And then when you click on a title, you can see that this title still shows in English, but place, hold, and all that stuff is in Spanish. It's a mixture there, but according to Equinox, this is our only option if we wanted to add a different language right now. So at Scenic, we would like to at least offer this as an option to people so that they could choose it from that drop-down menu to choose English or Spanish. And we would need to take that as a recommendation from the CERC committee. If everybody agrees to it, we'd need to take it to the next membership meeting so they could vote on it as a membership.
This is Ron from Sykeston. My question is, why wouldn't we want to do it?
So does Ron make a motion that we go ahead and do it?
I'm just putting that out there. I think
Sure.
It's a great idea. We have an increase in Spanish speaking people in our area, and we're increasing our Spanish materials as well.
Okay.
So let's just do it.
Okay, Diane makes a motion to go ahead and do it. Taking that motion forward. Everybody in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Anybody not in favor? Okay, we'll take it forward as a recommendation.
Then I suppose sometime if someone saw an increase in, I don't know, Ukrainian people in their neighborhood, we could ask that that be added too. Just increase that drop-down menu as we saw the need in our communities.
Yeah, definitely. Great.
Thank you.
We'll take that forward. And another item that came up is there is a hold shelf delay setting option, which was news to me and to several other people too, that this exists. What it is, whoop, I printed it out so I would be able to say it correctly. You can select a delay period between when a hold is checked in and when it shows on the patron account as ready for pickup. The delay gives staff time to decide if they don't want to use the item to fill the hold. It might happen if the item is damaged or in fragile condition. What will happen, the item's checked in, the status changes from available to in transit or hold in transit to hold shelf delay, which is hard to say. After the delay period expires, the status then changes from hold shelf delay to ready for pickup. So when you are checking in the item, it won't automatically trigger as available on the patron side. There are a fair amount of libraries that are currently using it. The amount of time that they're doing it is all over the map, from as little as 15 minutes to as long as 2 days. So Mickey suggested that we bring a recommendation forward from the membership of the whole, that maybe we can come up with something uniform for that, as opposed to having it be piecemeal. That some of it's too long and some of it's too short. So I wanted to see what you guys thought about that. And Mickey might be able to explain more detail than me with it too.
It's a fairly obscure kind of issue, but it is one that occasionally might cause some heartburn for some member libraries, in the sense that there's also an associated bug with this particular functionality in Evergreen, and the stall and the wait period and all that stuff is sort of behind the scenes, and it really doesn't affect our patrons so much as it does affect staff workflow. So this is very much a staff workflow issue, I think. Although obviously it has ramifications for patron access to materials, but it's kind of obscure enough that I don't know that we really need to sort of to dive into it as much as to talk about the principle of having a uniform or standardized setting for this function in the catalog, to see if that would regularize the way that the holds behave. That makes sense.
And I bet that a lot of people are like Meredith said, and me too. I didn't even know anything about this till recently. And libraries that have it set to 2 or 3 days, they probably have no idea. It was something that was given to us when we were doing our mapping, and you get just so much stuff, you have no idea what it is. Right. So, and the bug on this thing is that in the OPAC, the patron doesn't see what the status of an item is while it's on hold shelf delay. It will go from in transit to nothing. It says nothing on the OPAC. And if you had 2 or 3 days delay on there, the patron's looking for their item, they don't know that it's on the hold shelf unless they got their notification. Well, and they should have gotten their notification, but it looks like nothing's happening. So
and the notifications are independent of this though, right? Or
yeah, notifications are independent of it.
Yeah, so they could conceivably get a notification that something's available, go check the record and have it not be available if you have show as available if you have this big delay.
Yeah. And somebody put in the chat that they'd like to at least see it go out the same day. And I agree. We set ours to 2 hours just because, and that's when we have our notification delay too, so that we can maybe get more of the delivery checked in before people start getting all these notifications. So I'm for a 2-hour delay.
I have a question about that. We're fairly small, and if we get a small shipment, some people want to be called on the telephone, which I'll never understand. And so we call somebody and say their hold is ready. Now, if this delay is set to 2 hours, if they come in, will they be able to check it out, or will the status prevent that?
They can still check it out. And what I told the staff here too is you don't even, I'm just telling you this so that when you look in the patron's record and you see it says whole shelf delay, you won't freak out because you don't know what it means. But just go ahead, check everything in. If the status is all okay, I mean, it's not falling apart, so you don't want to use it to fill a hold. Just put everything on the hold shelf like you usually do. You don't even have to know anything. But I can see your point that it's not going to take some libraries as long as others to check in their delivery. So maybe a 1 hour delay would even be okay, because within an hour, you would hope that you haven't been interrupted so many times that you can decide that this item should not go on the hold shelf. An hour might be long enough.
And I understand the desire for uniformity and making things standard or whatever too, but like Darcy brings up and with it too, is that we have a broad spectrum of libraries that are involved in a broad spectrum of how those workflows are accomplished. Would it maybe be the best first step to do kind of an awareness situation where we document that the setting exists these are the libraries that have this setting and how it can be changed, and kind of generate that conversation and get that ball rolling before we just come down and say it must be thus.
Excellent idea, Meredith. I think the more awareness we have about what that does, the more the libraries can respond meaningfully to, yeah, fix it or leave it alone. It's not broken. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that makes sense to me. If that makes sense to everybody else, as the next best step, and just making people know that, and it may just kind of morph itself into that standardization once people kind of get an idea of what that workflow is anyway, and get to that point. So I can document where we're at, and I'll run it by you, Mickey, before I send it out, just to make sure I have clarity on the issue and what it says.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay. It is an exciting choice. I didn't even know it was an option. Okay, just writing notes down so I don't forget. Okay, and then one of the other ones that came up was the hold settings, and Diane can probably speak more articulately about this, but I'll try and do it. That there are several different hold settings in Evergreen that can do with the demand management that can make an item route differently depending on how you have it set. And I have it here on the computer, so I will say it right. There is the always go home setting that looks for holds placed by patrons at the owning library and prioritizes those. So if my patron has a hold on a book, it's returned at Scenic Regional, it will come home to fulfill the hold for my patron, even if people are waiting for it at Scenic. There is the traditional, which prioritizes the date the hold was placed. The book will travel around all over creation in order to fulfill the holds based on the date that they were placed. There is first in, first out, which prioritizes the location where the hold will be picked up in order to reduce transit time. So that is, if my book is returned at Scenic, a Scenic person has a hold on it, it will go to that person so that the book doesn't have to travel to and fro. We have consortium level settings for that, and there's also library level settings for that. And so in the course of this conversation is, do we want libraries being able to pick and choose how these holds behave based on their individual needs, or do we want a consortium level setting so they all behave the same everywhere that they go? And I don't know what the right answer to this is.
I was just going to say one thing about the traditional and the first in, first out. Can you hear me? Okay. The always go home setting can be used with either of those. So you don't have to, so like you could have traditional with always go home, or first in, first out with always go home. So it would first prioritize the owning libraries patrons, then it would prioritize based on date the hold was placed or geographic location. So it kind of goes with those two. Is my understanding.
Okay, so it's kind of like in my head to make it with, it's kind of like how Overdrive treats advantage titles with it too. If my person has a hold on it, it goes to them first, but if not, then it goes out to the greater world.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And so it's like you could say, okay, first I want it to go to any of my people, and then second you can say, okay, I want it based on who placed the hold first, or first in, first out, where the hold was placed.
And do you know if you have the ability to gatekeep that within, if you're a multi-branch system versus the outside world, or if it's going to behave with your branches like it would behave with other Evergreen libraries?
I believe that you can set it so it's like anybody in your system. But I'm not real sure about that, because when I was talking to them about it, and they had to do the setting for me, I didn't have the permission to do it. They asked me if I had branches, and I said no. So I think it is something that they can work with.
Okay. So do we have input from others for what your thoughts are?
I feel like I'm always talking, but I have a thought.
That's okay.
I like the idea of first in, first out, but I feel like it would give larger libraries, or rather smaller libraries, the shorter end of the stick, maybe. Like if a bigger library had it keep going to their patrons and somebody at a tiny library had placed it a long time ago. I don't know, but that's just a thought.
And you're right about that too, Darcy. And over the years, we've had libraries contact us and say, my book is still there at Scenic. And it's because it was in a FIFO setting, because it just came here and it just stayed here. So I know that they went to Mobius at the time and had their settings changed so that their stuff just wouldn't come over here and stay forever, which is certainly possible. So I don't know, maybe this should be a consortium setting, because it would be too easy for someone. I'm not saying anybody is currently a member of the consortium that doesn't have the best interests of everybody at heart, but it's just very, very complicated the way these holds are filled. And traditional in order doesn't, well, we changed our settings here at Scenic early on because it would go to one of our branches and just stay there forever, even though somebody at another branch had placed a hold at a different before the others. So the ILS now thinks that all of Scenic is in one building, so that something can go from Pacific to Warrenton and fill the holds in date order instead of just filling all the holds in one branch. So it does sometimes cause problems because patrons place a hold on something and they can see that it's available at the Union branch. They come in the same day, they think they're going to pick it up. Well, it's targeted something at another building because it thinks we're in one building. So then we just take it off the shelf and say, here it is, it fills the hold for you. But they don't understand that. And there aren't very many people that understand everything about holds. But that first in, first out, I know it saves the transit, and we have so many problems with the transits. So it really is, I don't know, do we need a task force to really hammer this out to see what would be best for 60 libraries? You know, it's 3 times bigger than it was when we joined.
You really put your finger on it. Boy, that's a fact. The fact that Evergreen has grown so much in size and has such a disparity between very large libraries like Scenic, very small libraries, that is causing the tension here. There's no clear-cut answer. So I'd recommend what Meredith said earlier. Let's document the workflow on this and really dig into it and figure out what's the fairest way to handle it for everybody.
Yeah, and I think like Diane said, getting a group together where we can have that conversation and get those voices heard. And I quite honestly, I am not that deep into hold fulfillment, so I'm learning as I go with it. So yeah, we can get a group together for that. Does anybody want to volunteer to be a part of that? And
I'll help with that.
Lori, did you want to be on that group? It sounds like you have a lot of knowledge. You own a lot of knowledge right now.
That may be all the knowledge I have, but sure, I'll be happy to. And I was going to say, we asked them to set up ours as traditional with Always Go Home, so we could, we don't age protect all of our new stuff, and that enabled us to have our new things come home to our patrons. So anyway, that's because we want to share if they're not in use. So anyway, but yes, I'll be happy to help with that committee or task force.
Great.
I think Krista Jackson put something in.
Oh, great. Thank you. I've been bad about not monitoring. Okay. Krista wants to be on it too. Awesome.
I've been here. I know. Believe me, I've been here.
Okay. And somebody's got an open mic that they're sharing their combo with us if they don't intend to. Okay, so that sounds great. We will continue that conversation forward with the task force with Diane, Lori, and Krista, and I can jump in there wherever I'm needed as well. So yeah, I appreciate you guys for that. And then the other item that came up due to Evergreen crashing the other day, which we were closed, yay, for this, when that went down, we have a very limited offline circulation instructions that are part of the Scenic training package that Diane was kind enough to share with us all. There is a more detailed one here that if I can get my stupid computer to go to. I will share. That is from larger Evergreen World that details it. So Mickey had the great suggestion that perhaps part of this group could work on creating kind of like an offline circulation cheat sheet, something people can grab in the moment when, oh God, it crashed. What do I do now? kind of situation. So there is the larger documentation here that could just be condensed to a generality. So I didn't want to see if anybody was interested in taking on that task. If not, I can do it off of here. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I
Mickey,
think many people have found out that when things go offline, especially if you're a small library and you have one person working the desk and staff, they don't know what to do. It's a very high stress situation because there's a patron in front of them. They don't have any tools to address the situation. And so what I heard immediately was from small libraries saying, help, we need to know what to do here. And of course, other libraries have developed things like spreadsheets and an Excel sheet or a Word document where you can just plug in your barcodes and go back to them later. But the smaller libraries and the newer libraries in Evergreen have no concept of how to deal with it in an emergency situation.
Mickey, did you say you found a broken link somewhere to the offline circ?
Oh, Ron cleaned those up. That was on an orphan page in our website. That was
okay.
just doing a search, and he found them and cleaned them up instantly. So that's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So I didn't know there was anything on the website. We just save a link, a shortcut to all our desktops. And then sometimes those have to be refreshed too. Then find out they're dead. And then that's when I get the phone call.
But yeah, I can tackle that, and I'll put a call out on the email listserv too to see if anybody has a glorious cheat sheet that they want to share that we can modify as well, so we don't reinvent the wheel. So I can do that. Okay, let me go back to the other. Okay, and then on the old business front, the damaged items best practices guidelines and the CERC policy revision were approved at the membership meeting, so they are live. And I did attach them to the meeting invite, so they are available there for you. So done and done, yay. And then the patron permissions turned into a more interesting situation than we thought it was originally. So Diane, did you want to touch base on that?
That was a wonderful discovery. That was a high point of my week, whatever week that was, that this new information came my way. We did have 35 libraries reply about which permission groups they currently use, if they're using the permission groups to actually give patrons different permissions, and which permissions groups that they would want to keep if we made any changes. And of the 19 that we have, there's one that it looks like we could actually get rid of that nobody's using to grant different permissions to different patrons, and that was county students. So I think we could ask the membership if it's okay with them if we get rid of county students, and then at the membership we could vote to get rid of one permission group. La-di-da. There is a library that wanted to add institution, I think it was Cass County, or wanted to add company as a permission group so that they could give different permissions to certain companies. So that will probably come up again. We can ask Cass County if they want to ask for that. And then I think we would have to offer that. Oh, Poplar Bluff as well. Okay. Poplar Bluff. Maybe it was Poplar Bluff to begin with, and my memory just doesn't serve me too well. Anyway, we would have to take that to the membership then, that we want to recommend getting rid of county students and adding company.
I think we landed on institution to keep that broader.
Okay, an institution. And then it's going to be all insignificant, because what we didn't like was that there were so many permissions, and there's just staff at the front desk trying to figure out what they're supposed to do, and especially if they're new and they're trying to remember what they were told to do. But we can have someone at each library have permission to edit what permission groups that library will see when they're registering a patron. It needs to be Equinox needs to give their permission because it's at a consortial level as opposed to a system or branch level. But then they can go in and edit the patron permission tree to see what options are offered on the registration page.
Diane, have you done that at Scenic? Have you
I
changed your-
did. It's
Did
the
you?
most wonderful thing.
That's
And
great.
It is, it's great. And I've had staff from the front line sending me emails saying, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Good. So you could just reduce that from 19 to whatever, 3 if you got 3 at your library, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly the number we have. We use 3
Fabulous.
here. And now nobody, a new patron, a new staff member is not going to see, oh, this is a kid. Maybe I'll register them as a minor because we don't use that.
So
And
we
they
just
don't
need
even,
to send out instructions to the libraries about what to do in terms of getting with Equinox and getting someone on staff to get permissions to alter that.
yes.
Great.
And we can do that now. We can do that after the next membership meeting because we were supposed to report back to the membership about the results of the survey. I don't know. If we do it now, we save a month and a half of frustration and we could make a formal report at the meeting, but I don't know all these deals about how we have to handle the meetings.
I would say do it now and then we can report on it at the meeting because it's not like we're adding or changing functionality. We're just changing appearances
Okay.
for how things go. And like you said, solve a problem now as opposed to a month and a half from now.
Okay, and there's some in chat too saying, please let us know how to do it now. We could say we discovered this whole new thing and then we can report on permissions later and add institution and remove county student.
Yeah, and I think that's the piece we could take forward to the membership meeting was the getting rid of the county student and the adding the institution.
Okay, well, and I'll be glad to write instructions and get it out to people.
I appreciate you and your gladness to write instructions.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
And we did have in the chat that a question about institution would work better for Stockton and could institutions be used for things like long-term care facilities? Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but my understanding is you could use it for whatever you wanted to. Once it exists, you can modify it to fit the situation for your particular library under that heading. Yay, I was right. Woohoo. Okay, and then that's awesome. And going back to the agenda, we do still have a committee member opening. We have had some people that have been coming to meetings that are not on the committee, and being vocal, and so that's awesome. So if any of you guys wants to be an official voting member of the committee, make sure to reach out to me. We do have one open slot and we can get you involved in that as well. And I think Diane, you mentioned some possibilities as well that we can pursue off list as well, which is awesome. And then we've got our space here for things that have popped up since then. I didn't know if Mickey, if you wanted to touch on the courier situation, you had sent some information out at the higher levels. I wasn't sure if you wanted to bring anything forward here.
Well, yeah, Meredith, I'm aware of the ongoing situation with our courier issues. The state library is as well, and Janet Carruthers has put together a summit, a regular meeting of the 3 groups: the state library, Mosul, and Mala, and ME. So the 3 of us are going to meet tomorrow. Jane and Janet and Mickey are all going to get together and talk about what's going on in terms of our courier service, where the hot flash point issues are in terms of certain routes that may be under-resourced or just bad, and try and really fix some of the issues that are recurring over and over and over again. A lot of it is out of our control, frankly, because it's part of the Henry business model of subcontracting to the very smallest mom and pop organizations at the last mile. But at the same time, I think we can identify some of the problems and then we can propose some solutions and work with Henry to get those implemented. So I think it's a great first step to get the courier issues addressed. Courier, as you know, is in a vital part of how our Evergreen works for patrons, and we got to get the materials into patrons' hands. So starting tomorrow, we'll be meeting regularly, probably once a week or once every 2 weeks with Mala and the State Library to address courier concerns. In that regard, I would I would invite all of you, this committee in particular, and anyone at your library, to reach out to me with any specific library courier issues you want me to bring to this group and address, because that's what we're going to be doing.
That's wonderful, and we very much appreciate that coming together. I know a lot of people feel like they're kind of talking into the wind sometimes.
Yes,
It's great to see that
yes.
it's moving forward and getting the concerns on the table.
Sure.
Okay, did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring forward while the group is still in session here? Okay. Hearing none, our next regularly scheduled meeting is March 22nd at 11 a.m. And then I'll go ahead and get the minutes out that'll document our action items here. And I very much appreciate you guys and your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.